Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining Loud and Agile Network. Our speakers for tonight are Michael and Pete. Michael is my ex-colleague. He is coming with wealth of knowledge to which I can attest, and so is Pete. They are going to present on the topic Escaping the Agile Doom Loop, which is based off the PAGE framework. I'm very curious to know about all that. I'm pretty sure you guys are as well. Little bit of introduction about Michael and Pete. They both have written, they have co-authored a book, Shift from Product to People. It's available on Amazon. And it talks about the human-centered approach for agile transformation. They both have trained tons of people. Pete is a leadership coach. They both have done tons of SAFe trainings, agile trainings, and so on. With that, I'll hand over to Michael and Pete for the presentation.
All right, thanks so much, Anju. And I really did enjoy our time together and hope one day we'll work together again. So with that, let me first say welcome for those who are here. And this is not how I normally look, just in case anyone's wondering. I don't normally wear an eye patch and my hair is a lot shorter and grayer than this. I'll just say that if you look at the screen, the character on there is based on a well-known show from John Carpenter called Escape from New York. Then he had a sequel, Escape from LA. And the main character from there was called Snake Plissken. And so he escaped, he succeeded. It wasn't easy, and it took a lot of grit, it took a lot of sacrifice, and it took a lot of determination. But you can be that person too, if you're in a dreaded agile or even business doom loop. So that's my character here. Anyone who's a video game fanatic, you'll also know that Solid Snake from the Metal Gear Solid series was also based on the same character. I'm just a skinnier version of him. So little cosplay here. All right, let's get started. So what I wanted to do first is today happens to be September 11th. All right, so I'd like to just do a quick moment of silence for like 30 seconds to remember that, hey, it's been almost 25 years since that happened. Let's never forget what happened with the World Trade Center. And so just about a 30 seconds moment of silence. Okay, thanks everyone. I think for anyone who's over 25 or at least over 30 remembers the time when that happened, I remember personally the time where I was exactly that day, everything, and that's something I will never forget as well. So, and for those that worked for Department of Homeland Security, 9/11 was the catalyst, right? That's what started it. So, okay, let's get into doom loops. Are you in a dead-end job, right? Are you sick and tired of feeling like you're going in circles at work? Do you have this feeling of, I'm just doing things over and over again? There's no job satisfaction. There's no happiness. There's no personal satisfaction. If you feel that way, and hopefully that's why you're here, you're probably in a doom loop, right? It's basically a kind of dead-end job. You're just going through the motions. Maybe you've quietly quit. Maybe you're getting paid gobs of money, okay? But you're still not happy, right? You're sacrificing your personal happiness for money. And we in the US spend almost 20% of our time at work. Shouldn't we enjoy our time at work? Okay, so there is a way out, all right? And just like Agile, the way out is easy to learn. We've got a simple acronym for you. It's only 5 letters like the word Agile, but it's hard to master, okay? That's where you need the grit. That's where you need the determination. That's where you need the sacrifice. And so you got to really want it. If you don't really want it, it's probably not going to happen, right? You'll just keep floating the way you're floating the way you are. But if you do really want a happy work life, then shift from acceptance to acceleration. And I'm going to hand it over to Pete to explain the technique. Really, we call it now a collaboration life cycle. That's a new term we came up for it. A collaboration life cycle that helps get you there quicker. Pete.
Yeah, this is an acronym. It collects a bunch of things that a lot of people have done before. It's a thing that we kind of noticed that as you are trying to get things done, as you're trying to do things, if you forget one of these 5, that's usually where things start to come into trouble. So it's similar in some ways to how we have like the INVEST acronym that helps to remember what to put into a story. This is a way to go back and sort of remind yourself and just do a quick check. Do we have all the main components that we need in order to have a effective change that's actually going to make a difference? So I'm going to walk through the first 5 pieces of it somewhat quickly. You're going to recognize some things that are familiar. And then I'm going to give you an example of applying this so that you can see how we think about it and how we use this in order to be able to bring about effective change for what we're doing. So our first one is the P. So the problems. Now, there are many different ways to sort of describe problems. I found the best prompt to use when you're trying to identify is, what is it that you want to leave behind? So, for example, we might have somebody saying, well, we're not going fast enough. Well, fast enough is not the thing that you want to leave behind. Fast enough is the thing that you want to have happen. And so if we start switching that around and say, well, what are you experiencing? Oh, it takes us 2 years, 3 years to get everything out the door. Oh, okay, that's what we want to leave behind. That we want that thing to no longer be here. And if you can start to collect that information about the things you want to leave behind, those are things that you can start to become measurable, and you can start to pull some data on top of that stuff. So another tip that we always have is take the problems, once you start collecting these problems from teams, and put them into a single list. So kind of like you would have a prioritized backlog, have a prioritized list of problems. And the rule from a prioritized list of problems is do not make a higher ordered problem worse when solving a lower order problem. And so this can become the foundation for a lot of really good debates to figure out, which problems are causing other problems, which ones are affecting other problems. Ideally, we want to solve as many problems on this list as possible. But if we can't, knowing which ones we should not make worse when solving other problems can make all the difference in the world. All right, so let's go on to the next one. A, actions. Here we want to call out specifically the point is about doing something new. If we've gotten into many places where people are like, well, we're just not so good at doing X. We're not so good at doing story points. We've been doing story points, but we're not so good at it. So our actions, we want to get better at it. And usually teams are in that spot where if it was going to make it better, it would have happened already. So we recommend really choosing something new, something that you're not already doing, something that breaks you out of your comfort zone and puts you into a new spot. But the flip side of that is this tip down here, which is be very careful about customizing a new idea to your culture. It's another one of those checklists that I have when I'm going through and I'm working with the team. We'll introduce a brand new action. They'll have a list of roles of what are rules that you're supposed to do, and we're going to do this step, this step, this step, and that step. And they go back and they're like, well, in our culture, we don't do this, and I'm like, we would rather do this in this format. And they've customized the new technique to fit the culture, and then it no longer does what the original technique is intended to do. And when it doesn't work, they go back and like, oh, well, the technique sucks. No, the technique actually might have and usually does work. And so when I take it back to the original rules and say, all right, now we're going to do this, and then they're like, oh my God, that's so much different than I thought it was going to be. And so that's the importance of the actions and following the rules and what we're trying to get to. So these are just some of the reminders of this category of stuff to choose something new. Next one up is the G, the goals. What is going to be different? So if we're trying to make a problem go away and leave that behind, we're taking on a new activity, some kind of an action. Start to visualize what that new kind of experience is going to be. How is that going to be different? What are you going to be able to see in how you're acting that will show you that you have actually achieved that goal, that you have actually gotten to that space? And if you can think and visualize what that is beforehand, that will help with the clarity of what kind of activities do we want to do, how does that work into those things. And the tip here is to trust the emotions that sometimes we'll introduce something and we'll be like, oh, this should be better. But then we get to that place and it's not. Now, if you go through the whole organization and nobody feels better about the change, you probably shouldn't do it and go ahead and roll it back. You may be in a situation where some people, their life is better and some people, their life is worse. And there you can bring those things up to that prioritized problems list and it should match up. So if there was a problem for one type of role that got worse, is that lower in your list of problems than the problem that got better for that one set of group of people? And so this can help you. And then next time you do an improvement, then maybe you help out those people who were hurt by the change that you just made. But somebody in your organization should feel better about what you're doing when you have achieved your goal. Number 4 is evidence. So a lot of times we have great intent to collect evidence, and we maybe start at the beginning of the process in putting some of these things together, and then things don't go as well as we thought it would be, or we realize that there's something else that we could do, and I find that evidence is one of the first things that tends to disappear and go away. But if you can find some way to track the problem first, make sure you have a problem metric, and then you track the details of the action that you chose in step 2, you can both find out if you are on track and whether or not that problem is going away. I tend to use that as my definitions for leading and lagging metrics. So I call a lagging metric the problem metric. If we want that problem to go away, we're going to do a bunch of actions. It's probably not going to go away until after the actions are done, at which point all the work has been done. So that is in that class of a lagging metric. We won't find out until at the end of the process. So in the meantime, we have decided we're going to do this new action. So if we identify what the steps are of the action, what's different about the action that we're taking, and we put some metrics around those steps, we can have our leading metrics. So as we're doing our change experiment, we can collect detail to make sure that we're following the rules as we're supposed to. And what should happen at the end is that we meet our metrics for the leading metrics for the solution. And as a result, the problem gets better. And if it doesn't, then we pick the wrong action and we've learned something. And we know that this thing doesn't actually make the problem go away. And we can pick something else and we can find some other thing. But don't get trapped into the idea of sticking on to your evidence of the solution and saying that, oh, we did the rules we planned to do, and so therefore it's a success, because it shouldn't be that hard to stick to the rules of what you're planning to do. That's the easy metric to do. Hard metric is making that problem disappear. All right, so that brings us around to the last one in our acronym here, which is story. What did you learn? Did you succeed? Did you fail? A lot of people, if you succeeded, they will sing the story up and down. They'll do all kinds of presentations about it. They'll go do meetups and they'll do conferences and they'll talk about it. Very few people will take the things that didn't work and tell the story about that. And the issue is that if you do not talk about your failures, you are basically kind of dooming some of the other groups and teams within your organization to also experience those same failures, because they don't know that we tried to take this action to solve this problem and it didn't make that problem go away. And they may also be thinking, oh, we can do this action and it'll make this problem go away. And then they discover after you've done it that it didn't work for them either. Or maybe it did, and the story, having a story about a failure and a story about a success, and being able to compare those two can also provide insights. So really the most important thing is whatever you do, whatever the outcome is, capture the story for that and put that together and be able to tell that and go into a retro, go into a knowledge sharing kind of thing, and talk about what happened so that other people know what you tried, what happened, what didn't happen, and can learn from your successes and your failures.
Yeah, I'll just add really quick for you, Pete, there is that I've gotten my whole list now that I keep stored about all of the stories I've had in my career, because my career has gone on for a little while. And people always resonate with those cautionary tales, with the stories about, we tried this and this is how it failed. Because a lot of people will try to say, well, this is the thing we need to do. Let's change this standard way of doing it. And I'll go, well, that was tried over here. We're not the same. Everyone's different, but yet we can learn from these stories. And then they'll go, oh, okay, I see where we're going. And sometimes it needs a few back and forths, but those stories are very powerful. Success stories help too, but those failure stories really go a long distance.
Yeah. All right. So this is an acronym that I use with all my teams, Michael as well, that we recommend that you all do with your things, is go back and take a look at, like, if you're sitting down in a retro and you're going to plan out something that you're going to do for the next sprint, go through the pages. What is the problem that we want to leave behind? What is the action that we are going to do that is different than what we are currently doing? How will we know we get there? What's going to be different about how we operate if we are successful? How are we going to collect that information about it? And let's go ahead and grab a baseline for that right now. And then when we get done, let's make sure we write up that story about what happened and be able to tell it to that thing. And often if you go through this as a checklist for anything that comes out of your retro and it didn't work, or go back and think about something that you did in the past for a retro that didn't work, probably what you're going to find is it's missing one of these 5, if not more than one of these 5 different components. You had no clue on what problem you wanted to go away. You were more focused on the solution, or you didn't know how it was going to be different once you got to that space. You didn't collect evidence on it. You just kind of feel your way, found your way through it. And you didn't have anything that you can reflect on to say whether or not you were successful or not. So each one of these different components can get you in trouble if they're missing.
That's right. Or it's anemic as well, meaning that, and I love this analogy. I talked to you and Mahal, who's here as well. Thank you for being here again, growing with Tapestry. And that is, if you see somebody, I literally did. I saw somebody who was a man who was super muscular up top, but he had these like 10-year-old kid legs. And it's like, yeah, you got The Rock or Arnold Schwarzenegger up top. It just didn't look right. And so you got to make sure you balance all of these. It's not just forgetting one of them and nothing happens, right? Like analysis paralysis, or you have no goals and you're not going anywhere, or you don't track if you're progressing. But you want to make sure you get the right balance. And that's always context specific. And that's where the hard work comes, is knowing just enough to make them all go forward, to address those problems and get out of the situation you're in to a happier place, right? What can you remove to make things better for everybody that's new?
Yeah. Mihal has the call out there in the chats. You know, if anybody saw the
Johnny Bravo
cartoon back in the day.
All right, I'm Snake Plissken and Johnny Bravo.
There you go.
Not the right haircut now. Not as cool.
All right, so I'm going to tell you a story. This is a real life story. I've made some modifications and changes on this too, because of NDAs and a variety of different things. But everything that happened in the story is a real thing that did happen with works or teams that I've been working on. And this will give you an example of sort of the applied version of this and how this goes. So on the next slide here, you're going to see the list of requirements that we were given. So basically, we had 9 months to complete a project. There was a new standard in the industry that was going to make this product not obsolete, but basically we would not be able to sell it in the course of 9 months. That had 20 different variations. This is an electrical product. They gave us a bunch of other different requirements. We had to reduce cost. We had to keep the same dimensions so that it would fit into the same places and people could just swap out what they currently had with the new one. There were other requirements that came in as far as, giving it some new features. Since you're already going in there and making a change, why don't you go ahead and do this and this and this? And I can probably guess that a bunch of you have been in a similar kind of situation. Now, these things conflicted with each other. So there were some impossible asks for this stuff. So one, they're asking you to make a bunch of different changes, but they're also asking you to cut costs. And the very fact of doing the changes is expensive. And it requires new materials, and it requires new work, and it requires new verifications and new test plans and all these sorts of things. And so it was an unrealistic ask in there, but everybody was like, nope, we got to have it. We got to have it. Got to have the whole catalog. I need you to add these new features on top of this stuff. And it all has to come out in 9 months. That's it. And so they were not getting along well. And so whenever I see a team that's in this situation where they are not listening to each other, they are being combative, they are being a little bit maybe sort of not respective of that, of the other side and the perspective of what they were doing, my go-to thing is a technique called prioritized epic problems. And so what I did was I took each of the different requirements here and I just looked at the problem. So I just looked at the P step within pages for everything that was going to be done. And so we walked into, so if you go to the next slide there, Michael, the first problem that came up that everybody was big on was the 9 months. So we've got to get this time to market. So I was like, all right, so time to market is what we want. It's not what we want to see go away. So what do we want to see go away? Now, the industry had already identified that there are electrocutions that were happening with this electric product. And so that's why the new regulations were here. There were other competitors inside of that space who are already selling a compliant version of this product, and they were starting to take away some of our customers. So these are the types of things that we wanted to see go away. So then we looked at the next one, and I asked this question. The next one on here is can we do everything or can we do portions of these things? So we turn these again into the problems. So they had an idea for, we could do what we do waves, different, break this down into sub features of this. So there were 4 variations of this product that made up 70% of the sales. And if we do the whole catalog all up front, we are not going to get everything out to the market, and we're going to lose not only 70% of the sales, we're going to lose 100% of sales after we pass that 9-month thing. So we started talking about that, and we said that, all right, it wasn't as important to do the whole catalog. It was more important to get that 70% out within 9 months so that we didn't lose the sales. Next one that came up after that was this, let's go back and talk about the costs. Can we reduce costs? We're talking about margins. We put that in there. We said, all right, well, the most important thing is to get something out the door in 9 months. Then the next thing after that, we'd love to get the entire catalog out, but as long as we can get that first 70%, those first 4 variations out, that's great. If we could reduce some costs, great. But don't let that stop you from getting things done and getting it out the door. So that led to further conversations, and the team brought up this idea of there's an architectural change we could make that would give us some of these abilities to be able to meet some of the requirements that you're talking about, but it might add a little extra time, but we still think we can get it done within 9 months. And basically what they said is like, okay, well, as long as you're not going to push it out by too much, and you can give us a differentiator in the marketplace so that we have something that nobody else has, then it's worth it. If you cannot deliver that, do not even get started on working on this new architecture, because there's no way we can sell it. So we got to have that conversation there. So then we got down to the other different parts of the list of requirements and the idea of meeting these new customers that we weren't even selling to yet. was less important. And then after that, they had a request on branding where they needed, the leadership was asking for a consistent look between all the products, but that thing was adding to the margins or adding to the costs and reducing the margins. And it turned out it was really difficult. So we end up, one more through there, Michael, and the one after that. So we ended up with this prioritized problems list, put in order that we all agreed upon. And people came out of this meeting with this discussion saying, oh my God, this is one of the best discussions we have had in a long time. Like, we haven't collaborated like this in 10 years, maybe even 20 years. And they were super excited about it. And everybody knew walking forward that at any point, if somebody came in and said, hey, I need you to reduce the cost, and we're like, all right, well, we have this list here. We can go back to it, and we agreed about it when we started, and that came up and during the execution of the project. And so then, like, we went back to the leadership, went back to sales and said, did you really agree that they didn't have to reduce costs? And they were like, yes, we need to get this out in the market. And everybody was on the same page, and everybody was talking about the same problems because we had talked about it before we had got started. Go one more slide here, and one click in. Actually, I think I did an animation on this one.
Just go through it.
Yeah, just go through it. So that's why we ended up getting to this thing. We had identified what is the prioritized list of things. We started at the top of the list of what's a problem. And we said, all right, so the very first thing that we want to do is we want to do some research onto the market research, or to do some research onto these idea of the flexible connections for this architectural change that the team wants to do. Is that really going to be a differentiator in the marketplace? Because if it isn't, we should not even spend the time on the architectural work up front. So that became the first experiment that we ran. And then just kind of skim through this here. But I'm going to stop and take some questions here in just a minute. But Michael, just click through a bunch, and you'll see all the different problems that we did. Just go click, 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 click. There's about 9 of them on this page. So you can see here's all the different pages that we did in the story of this company or in this product in order of how that we executed on it in order to solve the various different problems that were listed on the left-hand side. All right. That was a whole bunch of things that I just dropped on top of you all inside of here. So I wanted to open this up and say, we've got more time to talk about this case study, and then we'll go on to another one that Michael has been working on, but we don't want to be driving this entire thing. So who's got some thoughts? Who's got some questions? You've seen an application of this. You've seen some portions of this. I'm going to pull up the chat and see if there's any questions that are in there as well. What are thoughts that you have, and would you like me to answer or drill down on more details on any of the things that were in that presentation? All right. Everybody loves a good tale of woe. Yeah, thanks, GP. So I find these things to be super, super powerful. This is like what you just saw is the approach I take with any new team. First thing we do is we sit down, we make a list of all the problems. We discuss it, we debate it, we go around. I'll spend 2 weeks just talking about problems with teams. And that'll be sort of like our design sprint in many ways, to really find and identify and prioritize the problems that we want to do so we are all solving the same problems. And then the rule is we're going to solve as many problems as possible, but don't make a higher order problem worse when solving a lower order problem.
Let me twist the question. If you notice, the title here is Agile Dead, is Page is Dead too. And we know that our world has shifted for us in the Agile marketplace, right? We were in hot demand 5 years ago, and 10 years ago, or even hotter, but it then hit a peak, right? And you can almost go through the adoption curve on how we are as Agilists. And now AI is like, everything's AI this, and you even see all companies, including Scaled Agile, which I just found acquired a company today, AIROI or something like that's the name, that shows that AI is the new wave, and it's apparently, from a lot of people's opinion, just steamrolling over anything that's with Agile. And so either the Agile people jump off of that Agile ship and join the AI ship, or else they feel like they're going to die. What do people here believe?
Feel free to raise your hand, jump in line, or type in the chat.
All right. Since nobody seems to be too into talking, maybe everyone's eating dinner or something. Let's go over my story, and we'll give you another chance to ask.
I
Yes.
see the message from GP. I don't think the need ever goes away, regardless of what you call it.
Thank you, GP. And I agree. Their business needs will always be business needs, right? If you just throw a robot on it and you get agentic power and all the different things that AI promises, it still comes down to people. That's why Pete and I did write the book, Shift from Product to People. I think that if we did a new version, which we are writing a second book, would be Shift from Robot to People. So there is always going to be people. And I would say that I recall 25 years, maybe more like 30 years ago now, that when the World Wide Web and the internet came out, there was this whole doom and gloom about how the jobs that were available at the time were all going to go away, and the rich people are going to get richer, and that the poor people are going to get poorer, and that we won't have the same jobs anymore. And some of that's true, but new jobs came in, new jobs got created. And the rich did get a little bit richer, maybe a lot richer. We might have $1 trillion in the next 5-10 years, how things are looking. And so there's some truth there that the rich get richer, but we can still find a place for ourselves. And AI doesn't appear to be any different than the internet when it comes to creating new jobs as well.
No.
All right, I'll go with my story. For those here that have worked with me before, I was doing a lot of government work since 2020. I like variety. So there was one area in work that I hadn't gone to before, and that was state. And I've actually dived into the state of Illinois and been working on something that I consider to be very, very important from being a noble cause. This has to do with mommies and giving birth. So before, during, and after childbirth, which is called the perinatal world. And there's a whole bunch of great things that happen. Everybody's excited about a new baby, but bad things happen too. And so there's a contract that I've been working on since about 6 months now. That has to do with what we call the Mandy system. That's what we've nicknamed her, the Maternal and Neonatal Database Illinois. And our constraints were a surprise. Now, this is where Pages really helped with me, okay? When we came in as a team, they had a lot of problems with actually not enough people. They had a lot of people that had been in their overseeing body, which is the Illinois Department of Public Health, that quit, that left, that moved on, and they have a lot of empty spots. As a matter of fact, they still have a lot of empty spots. If anybody wants to work for the state of Illinois, let me know. I could probably help you get on board, okay? But they don't pay that well, at least directly in there. That's part of the reason. And you could go look public website too. They're public servants, so you can actually find their salaries. Let's just say it's not that impressive. So they had a skeleton crew, barely could keep the ship afloat. And they also gave us a surprise when we started. First off, they delayed the kickoff by 1 month. And then they gave us a surprise saying, well, the new system has to be put into place in 3 months because the old system is being decommissioned. and we don't have the money to keep it going. So what do? We did what all Agilists do. We're going to get down to the core version of the product, find out what's the steel thread that will hold the whole thing together and keep people moving, and have only those critical expected features. And then we separated that, and that was with a pre-MVP and post-MVP activities. So that moved into where we had to understand what was going on. There's 185 hospitals, give or take. Actually, they have new hospitals get built, old hospitals closed down. They had one just closed down yesterday. And so it's about 185 in the state of Illinois. And they actually got part of a little bit south in like St. Louis as well. So there is in there, each hospital is kind of like their own castle. They run everything independently. They've got their own systems. If you know anything about hospital systems, they got Epic, they got Cerner, they've got all these other things that are just contained within themselves. And then they're loosely affiliated in these perinatal centers, which is overseeing the health of mommies and their babies, right? And their collections are usually about a dozen hospitals or so out of the 185. And so there's an oversight, and they're loosely affiliated. And then they all kind of report to the state of Illinois, which gives the overall rules, regulations, any kind of bylaws. They've got the policies in place that have to do with how they do quality and how they do checks on how things are going with cases. Because when mommies die, that's a big deal. When live babies die, that can be a big deal too. And it does happen. So getting everybody put together was like herding cats, right? And then we had a skeleton crew as well. So we had to do something quick. And that's where even my team, I have one person who is a CEO of a company, a mid-sized software company, who was very helpful. Him and I joined forces. We were able to move this forward. And with that, we realized two main things. For them, quality of the data is king. It's all about making sure the data is right, the stories are right. If a mommy died, was it preventable? If it was even partially preventable, what's the reasons? Because in the state of Illinois, if there are too many preventable cases of deaths, that hospital could close. They'll either lose funding or get shut down. And it's happened before. That's serious stuff. So quality is number one. They got checks, double checks, triple checks on making sure all the data is right. And then the usability side of it's a big part of it too. These users, they've got nurses, they've got doctors, they got administrators. They just want to go in the system, enter the data in really quick and get out with as little friction as possible. And the old system was like Old West. You could throw in a refrigerator in there and the system wouldn't care. I'm not kidding you. Duplicate data, a lot of problems of it. And that's why they wanted to shut it down, because the quality out of it was really difficult to manage. So last slide on this, we turned pages into success. We worked on identifying ourselves, the key people, and then suggested them to the state of Illinois saying, we want to get a steering committee. That was the term they wanted to use. I like change coalition. I'm more into those kind of words. Steering committee sounds too controlling, but that worked for them. We use their words. We meet them where they are. And that helped guide what the product was going to be, prioritize it. We had a product owner that barely paid attention to this. She was an epidemiologist, and she was more interested in her regular job. And so she really needed to delegate that to someone else. And that's where the steering committee came in place. So we realized we were able to identify our problems, put them in order, and make sure that they were being observed and get them tied together with all of these different people of different perspectives. Our action was that we built up a test environment very quickly, AWS to the rescue here. And first we had a team of about 35 volunteers that started testing it. And then they liked it so much, basically every single user had access to it, about 300, little over 300 users. And so our goal was to release by that date and then improve. And we released it by that date about 2 months ago, about a month and a half ago. And now we're improving it, right? We're going from that MVP, we're at core, now we're in expected. We're getting more and more of the expected, and we're going to start cracking into the augmented here pretty soon. So important parts, usability testing. We went on site, did Gemba walks, saw how they used it, understood and observed their activities. We recorded those sessions. Now, for those that know hospitals, you got HIPAA, you got PHI, you got to worry about that. So we've got all that blessed and so on. But that made a huge difference understanding where their pain points that they didn't even realize were at. And that was the evidence we've used to improve this system. So evidence doesn't always have to be a JIRA report. Evidence doesn't always have to be, here's our capacity, right? I mean, I talk about flow mechanics and no estimates because we didn't use any story pointing. We agreed early on, we don't need to do that. We're just going to follow flow. But evidence is also about showing the truth, leading and lagging with what the customers really want. What do they really want? And that's what we showed. And then story, I had lots of stories. State Department, Anju, worked with you there. That was a story I used a decent amount. USDA, I worked with them prior to CGI days. Also, Pete, my experience with CMS, that one was a cautionary tale. And boy, they loved it. They laughed every time I brought up CMS. It's like, whoa, you folks are making a decision really quickly, right? And then I would bring a little anecdote about CMS, and they would go, because they work with CMS, so they just loved it. So that sort of thing really helped them feel together. And we went from all these folks going their separate directions, not really have any focus, to everybody's like working together now. We've got all of the groups now. They have their disagreements, some healthy friction there, but through pages, we're able to have a very successful system that's growing and improving. Is it fantastic? No. Matter of fact, the average rating on a survey we had was about 3.2 out of 5. Not so good, but everybody expected that, and they realized that, hey, we do this in 3 months, it should be 3.5. If we do it and say, we got some OKRs on that, by the way, objectives and key results. So that is the story, and pages helped me make sure that I was balancing all that. And yes, it takes emotional intelligence. Yes, it takes influence. It takes a lot of skill to do that. That's part of it too. Pages is that collaboration life cycle that just helps me keep focused on the right pages, right places. That was a slip of the tongue. All right, so does anybody have any questions about the usage of pages?
We have a very quiet crowd here.
And we can also flip it around too to say, you know, is there anything that you did in the past that you could point to that's you're like, this makes sense because we did this thing in the past, we didn't do, and then let us know what letter that was. And as a result, we didn't see a change. Or feel free to challenge us.
Yeah, come
What
on.
would you do in
Maybe
this
say
situation?
something like Agile sucks, or something that's controversial that we always see with the clickbaits, right? And we need some more clickbait, Pete. That's what we need.
We need more clickbait.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you know, there's one in the chat here with Agile plus AI. So Jackie's helping us out here. I mean, that is clickbait right there. AI is big, and the death of Agile is also a big topic right now. I think there is, I was having this conversation with the Hot Take Michael's Wigs Apex.
I agree with you, GP. I need one. Michael, hook me up.
I'll send you the link after.
Also, looking at the chat, somebody was asking about a recording, and we are recording. So, and if you want to, you guys want to share details about how people get access?
Yeah,
to
I
the
can.
recording?
So we normally take one sprint to curate the video and upload it. This is run by volunteers. Within 2 weeks, we guarantee that it'll be up on our, and we'll put a link here in chat. So we have a library of all the past events that we've had. So yeah, within 2 weeks it'll be uploaded, and it'll be here. So we'll share a link in a couple of minutes.
Okay. I coming up to the last slide here, since there were questions, but I do want to give a big bow to Mr. Michal Parkova, if I'm saying your name right, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you. He's been also our supporter recently, and even came up with a custom chat GPT that is based on Pages, which I think is pretty sweet, because Pages has been slimmed down. We have all these little tips, right? And Pete gave you just one tip per letter. There's more like a 5, 6, maybe even a dozen tips per letter of things that we've learned that will help you be able to implement Pages without screwing up, right? It's more of those, hey, we've gotten the experience by doing things wrong, which then got us to understand how the right thing is that we should be doing from there. And so we're trying to share those with you so you don't have to make the same mistakes we have. So that is something we're willing to share. And we do have our own Shifting People website as well. The book, you can go and scan it with your QR code right there and take a look at it. But we're more than happy to follow through with more of this, since it isn't just as simple as, okay, just list the problems, come up with actions, come up the goals, bring the evidence, and have stories, and you're done, right? As I said, it's easy to learn, but it's hard to master.
Yeah, and if you go up to the Shifting People website and you want to preview, under the menu for the book, there's a sub page under there for that as a preview. We're also working on an audiobook version of it. And so if you'd like to check that out and give us feedback on, we're using some AI generated voices to try to get it out a little bit faster. And we'd love to get your feedback on what you think about that. Is it effective? Is it useful? Is it annoying? All of those feedbacks would be helpful for us.
So I do want to say that it's an amazing book, and I read through it. It is a story, so don't think of it like like a theory book. This is written like a novel, and there's an amazing story, and just a few crew members, and is all these conversations that really make you think deep into what's happening. And I think it's an amazing way of portraying and putting across what you want people to understand. When it's a real life scenario, it's so much easier to understand that versus, oh, do this and you'll get this, right? It just sounds like a lot of fabricated stuff. But when it's in a real story format, and I love that about this book, it's very similar to, if you've read the book, The Goal by Goldratt, or the Phoenix Project, which is more popular with people like us meaning Agilists. So yeah, very good. Kudos, guys. Great job, and I can't wait to see your next book.
Thank you.
Since there were not a lot of questions, I have something that I want to say and perhaps get feedback or validation from both of you. So when people are saying Agile is dead, I don't buy that. Um, and I feel that when people say that, oh, people don't need to learn about Agile anymore because everybody knows about Agile. They're doing all the right things. And I don't buy that when several of us who are coaches or scrum masters or uh, product owners or Agile team members, we knew that Agile wasn't being done perfectly then. So how come now suddenly people say that, oh, we don't need to think about Agile because we're doing it right, right? Like you're just doing a stand up in the morning, you're not even doing that right, and you expect everybody to believe that we don't need all this focus on Agile. Sure, there's AI which is taking away a lot of focus, but that doesn't mean that we cannot do Agile right. And I feel that I don't think Agile is dead. I think fake Agilists are dead, right? The folks who are still with Agile, who have the Agile mindset and they're driving change in their organization, in my opinion, they are the true agilists, and they are the ones who are going to still stay because they're not just changing from one fad to the other, right? When EVM was like a big thing, yeah, everybody was talking EVM, and then that died, and people moved to that, like greener pastures. But anyway, those are some random thoughts, and I would love to hear some reflections from Mike and Pete on that.
Yeah, I just as good ideas or things that come along have a tipping point. Agile was down to a certain point until it got to a place and then it tipped over. Lean
Yep.
startup had a tipping point. Design thinking had a tipping point. Scaled Agile had a tipping point. Everything has a place where it reaches enough people who have the same experience that it starts to tip over and become the new norm. But what a lot of people don't track is that the same thing can happen with negatives. And I think what we experienced was there are like my experience, I'll just put out in my experience right now, walking into brand new teams, there are way more teams that have been trying Agile, not following pages, not doing it correctly, and they hate it. And they're like, Agile was the absolute worst thing that I have ever experienced in my life. We know they're not doing Agile. But the majority of the experiences that I've been running into more recently have been misapplied Agile under the banner of Agile. And I think, unfortunately, that tipped. And so more people now have an association with Agile that's not really Agile. And we've allowed that to take over because there's been, I'm hearing this in conferences, and last thing I'll say, and then I'll hand it over to Michael. There's been a fear in a lot of conferences of last year of you can't say that's not Agile. Sometimes it's not Agile. And if we don't talk about what is and what isn't Agile, then not surprising that some people see this thing that is ruining their lives. They see somebody put the name Agile on it, and they're like, I hate Agile.
Yep.
And we're paying the price.
I'm looking at the time. I'm always Mr. Facilitator when it comes to time. GP would remember that with my safe training. And I'll just say that as long as there's bad products, as long as there's bad projects that go over, there's going to be a need for Agile. Agile is just not the shiny new sexy squirrel thing that we had for about 20 years. We had a long run. It's been over 20 years, actually, right? Like 24 years. It's been a long run. It proves its staying power. It's just become so normal that people want to try something new. But as long as there's bad projects, as long as there's bad products, there's going to be a need for the fundamentals of Agile. That's it. And hi, Nick. Good to see you, man.
I put one more link into the chat here. So we thank you very much. Appreciate you listening to us going on about this. One of the best classes, or one of the best techniques I have to use is prioritizing problems. So I've been working on putting together a class for this. I put a link in the chat because I need people like yourselves who are experienced to take this first class. I'm not charging for it because what I need is the feedback. I want to present some content, and I need people to give me some feedback and say, this works, I could use this, I don't understand that, that doesn't make sense, you're crazy, whatever it is. So please go visit this, sign up. I'll post some details over the next couple of weeks to get it started. And if you can join and help, would love to get your feedback on a prioritizing problems class.
If you got problems everywhere, consider joining.
Great to see you guys.
All right, Mike, sorry, but I had to take a screenshot of you.
I saw that. That's okay. I've got a whole video of me like this in Estonia.
That's going to be a meme.
It's hilarious.
Yeah, that's going to be a meme now.
All right, I want to look at myself going.
That's all right. Yeah, Halloween is right down the street, right? It's coming right up.
Hey, Halloween, it's easy now. The spirit Halloweens are all over the place in the empty malls.
So
Yeah.
this was like really a great presentation, you guys. Thank you for being yourselves, your genuine yourselves, and sharing all this with us. We still have a few minutes. Are there any questions, or are there reflections that you want to share with the rest of us? It's a small group. Please feel free to unmute and ask questions, or share reflections like I did, right? Like those were reflections,
Yeah.
not
I noticed
affirmations.
the
Yeah.
timing was off, but Nick was just about to say something if you wanted to hop back in.
Oh, hey, sure, Nick, go ahead. Nick of time.
Oh no, I just said it's great to see the guys again. Got to work with some of you, so it's fun.
Nice.
Absolutely. It's old times again. We got to get the band back together, Nick.
I was telling GP I'll be in DC in October, so let's
I
do it.
might be. I'm trying. I've got a lot of balls in the air. I'll leave it at that. But if you
Fair
are
enough.
in DC, let's hook up. Maybe with Pete, GP, you and I, whoever else, Anju, whoever else, Toby, Meenakshi, whoever.
Sure.
It'd be great to do a little get together.
Meenakshi is great at being the designated driver, so I highly recommend calling her.
We can have an agile moot or something. DC.
All right. So on that note, I do have a plugin. I put a link earlier. Next month, we have on October 9th, we have Jesse Fuel, who has been an amazing supporter and like promoter of Agile, and like he's done so much in the Agile space in our area. So he is joining us next month, and his topic is Agile without saying Agile, and values over jargon. So basically, I think it kind of jives with what was the theme of today, right?
Absolutely.
So I think it is just perfect, right? It's like, so how can you still um, lead teams, lead products, and lead organizations, but without using the word agile? Do you really have to use the word agile? Like, this is what we've been saying for years, right? Being agile over doing agile. So I think this is the time where you have to be agile. And how do you do that, or how do you be that actually? So that's the topic: agile without saying agile, values over jargon. So that's our next topic. Is on October 9th, 7 p.m. Yeah, Michael, I don't say agile. Okay, good.
I
Yeah,
just don't there.
yeah,
They don't even know what it is. They have no
yeah,
clue.
just do it, right? Yeah. So it's interesting that, like way back when we were bringing in Agile, we did Agile without saying it was Agile. That was the only way it was accepted. I remember, what was that, 2008, 2009, there were very few Agile jobs available. And I had Agile experience, but most projects were waterfall. So you didn't say Agile, but you started doing Agile things and people accepted you. So why is today any different, right? The times have changed, but hopefully you have become Agile. So don't change yourself. Like, still be you and run your projects in that manner, right? So that's anyway kind of the topic for next month. We would love to have you here again. That's our last event of the year. We used to do 12 months, but then we realized in November, December, we don't really get much audience. So, and also we as volunteers need a break. So we just do January to October. So it's our last event of the year, and we would love to have you. And also, recently Meetup introduced a system where all of you attendees get to rate us. So hopefully, we met or exceeded your expectations. So don't forget to give us a good rating. We have 4.5 out of 5. We want to at least retain or go higher. And we definitely want you back. We have 2,200 people. If you're not yet a member of Louder Agile Network, please join us. With that, I want to say thank you to Mike and Pete. Thank you for coming back, and you both. I think this is the second time you've been here, and you amaze us with all your wisdom and everything that you've done. Congratulations on your book. Can't wait for your next book. Thank you, everybody, and have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. Thanks for being here.